Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the 6th episode of the Dancer DLC for Cultist Simulator. We're going to be continuing on the path that we did from Monday, so essentially buying more books until we exhaust Moorlands. Now, I don't have the auction house yet. I'm going to need to use my health for that. But on the health point, we are going to be trying to take advantage of a nice little stack of vitality that we got after our previous upgrade, and then seeing what we can do. It's a little bit of a long shot to get enough lessons learned. I do actually think vitality is probably health is the most difficult one to move up. But obviously, as the dancer, that's going to be one of the most important abilities that we can level up, and we've got a head start on it. And so my study verb is being kind of occupied with vitality. And if it's not clear from last time, essentially we're going to use one of the vitality to cure the health or the disease. We will combine these into a lesson learned. I actually think I'm probably going to also have to combine this vitality into a lesson learned before too long, because once 60 seconds have passed, there will only be 34, and at that point I lose it. So I suspect probably we're kind of already on the back foot, but we may get a bit lucky in terms of a course of the heart, either from the study verb, from healing the sickness, from doing dances, and there will definitely be some different ways I try to angle things to my favor. So otherwise, I believe we get a free turn. Yes, we do. So let's see where the run takes us. Okay, so we've got old, unhappy, far off things. That's going to be some restlessness, and so it may make some sense to go to the gaiety. We've got 64 seconds left there, and actually we already have a bit of difficulty between the gaiety and Lord Timothy Monday. However, we've normally what we've done is we've alternated between the Benefactor, the gaiety, Benefactor, gaiety. So as long as nothing too difficult happens at the gaiety, we should be fine, and that will be a way that I can get rid of that restlessness. All the guests applaud with real conviction. My performance has gone down well. Afterwards, my benefactor is respectful and affectionate. I have a souvenir of the evening, quite an expensive one. That's another five funds for me. And we will throw that health into nap to recover from fatigue. I just need a little time to recover my energies. And of course, the really important part of this is the fact that I'm able to potentially get a course of the heart. So, contract to the gaiety. The stage awaits, hot and clean and bare and bright. If I move the moves and step the steps and do what is required, they'll pay me. And I've neglected my studies, but I stand a little straighter. So there's another vitality for me. Let's combine these two. So this is going to be a lesson learnt that we take. I am a brim with vitality. If I devote it some time to exercise, I'll benefit. And in 23 seconds, we'll have the dream slot available for this vitality, so we're in good shape there. Okay, we've got the skeleton songs, and of course I'm sure a number of you know the skeleton songs as Weather Factory, the publisher, developer of this game. That is the name of their podcast, which I very much enjoy. I think they talked about the Tempest, the last one. It takes time to sort the gold from the dross, the wheat from the chaff, the blood from the water. If I buy enough books, I'll find something interesting. Okay. And we have a season of despair coming up, so that gives me another reason to be careful about the old and happy far off things. This illness has damaged my health. I will need to rest before I'm fully recovered. So again, we'll use the vitality for that when we can, but we've got 14 seconds before we can. Definitely feeling the pressure on the benefactors, but I mean, again, it makes sense. It's one of these things that I do continue to appreciate however many times I play Cultist Simulator. It's fun. I think I've talked about this a few times, and how to a certain extent there aren't necessarily that many surprises for me in Cultist Simulator, but also because I don't have so much committed to memory, even little details I'll sometimes forget. But also just some of the little touches, like in this case, in one sense, you sort of think that it's fun to have kind of an adoring public or whatever. And again, I always feel a little, I think more so than any of the other legacies, I can feel a little self-conscious in terms of talking about the dancer in the context of streaming. And it's a bit of a shame because I actually think it's a very interesting entry point for, for sort of understanding or being able to sort of think of this legacy. I suppose the example that I would give, so here's the reason why I actually think streaming is kind of an interesting framing for the dancer, even though I don't think this is sort of the intention of the DLC. It's kind of fair to say that at least among a certain generation, being an influencer is kind of that's the thing you want to do. It's kind of equivalent to, I suppose a few decades ago, maybe you'd want to be in a garage band. I mean, I guess being a rock star in some way or another has always kind of had a certain type of appeal. But, for a while, everybody's kind of known someone who's been in a band of some kind. And there's certain people who maybe want to become actors, right? Or a ballerina, right? Something maybe a little bit more on brand. But it's also fair to say that in this, and I mean, there's no shortage in terms of some of my own background, and I've known a lot of people who have either been aspiring actors, but also people who do actually make a living as an actor, and not necessarily at the top of the profession where they're you're going to be doing well, but one of these ones where they're able to pay the bills, but they don't necessarily have too comfortable of an existence, let's say. So in the case of streaming, it's one of these cases where I think this is also very fair to say. So there is a group of people who are not just doing well, they're doing very well. And they're making a considerable amount of money. And of course, these are the people who sort of, by the nature of that industry, the largest number of people are going to know about. But it's also true that there are a very large number of people who are sort of working in sort of a middle tier. They may not be breaking even, and some of them may want to make it, and there may be other people who just enjoy doing it as a hobby. And this isn't to sort of suggest one way is better than another. But the reason why I kind of think it's an interesting framing in terms of the dancer is that obviously there is no such thing as influencers in the secret histories. This takes place in a period where that kind of activity, doesn't really quite make as much sense as it would today, if the concept of an influencer, makes sense at all at any time point. But one of the reasons why I find this so interesting is that obviously, whether it's YouTube or Twitter or Snapchat or TikTok or Twitch, there is this level, because it focuses so much on followings and so much on attention. And of course, this is also true for other professions which sort of have a fame component to it, whether, you could even be a famous author, or you could be an actor that everybody knows about. Again, I don't mean to suggest that streamer is the only role for these kind of connections. Especially today, because so much of it is involved in sort of that two-way dialogue. You do actually have to deal with individual people and their attentions. And, as opposed to some professions where maybe there is some physical distance involved, so generally if you climb up on the stage at the ballet, there's going to be someone to stop you, or that's going to be considered such an extreme act that, it's completely reasonable to expect that there's some intervention before you can actually get to the person that you want to talk to. A very large part of what we're dealing with today does involve this direct attention. And so with that in mind, right, there's that visible part. There's the part that you do in the work slot, which so maybe the better example would be what the experience of the Ecdysis Club is versus performing at the Ecdysis Club or the Gaiety Theatre. For you have a fixed amount of time that you are spending in that explore verb to get an outcome. Whereas here, you actually have quite a bit of attention. If you want to be very successful as a dancer, it may actually involve some of the attention from these, but you can feel a lot of pressure in terms of making sure that you're taking care of all of these priorities and all of these timers. And so it's one that I actually appreciate a lot for this DLC. And again, like I said, it's not that this is the only way that you can take a look at the dancer, but it's actually one that I continue to, in terms of all of my own individual hooks that I kind of relate to the character for, where I would normally not consider myself, like, if you gave me a list of these, the different legacies, which ones I would be able to relate to the most, I would normally have said that the dancer's probably the one that is the most distant from my individual experiences. And yet, playing it's the one where I actually tend to find some of the easiest hooks in terms of identifying it. And again, I the reason why I feel uncomfortable in doing these discussions is that I do not... Inevitably, there's always going to be someone who's like, oh yeah, this person, thinks they're far more important than they are. And I sometimes think there's maybe just not that much value in doing that kind of reminder, because there's always going to be somebody who says that. I'm going to have to rely on sort of the good faith of the audience here as to whether or not I'm trying to imply a level of importance or significance. I mean, you can see it's not like my stats are a secret, right? Everybody can see them on the channel. But what I find so interesting about the dancer is that it actually can speak to someone who is not necessarily at the top, right? We're not Baryshnikov. In this case, this is someone who's working for a living, making the most of their circumstances, and when an opportunity comes by, like a lot of different jobs, sometimes in order to really get ahead, and again, this individual is actually in quite a bit of comfort, in order to do that, there's a lot of work that's involved, and work that's not necessarily apparent. Again, it's the difference between visiting the Ecdysis Club. In that case, that's a 60-second encounter, and you get something out of that. When you watch a channel, when you watch a movie, when you read a book, there's a fixed amount of time that you, as the kind of on the demand side of the equation, there's a fixed amount of time that you spend to get the thing that you want. But the effort that goes into producing that is something that there's kind of an iceberg lying beneath that isn't necessarily always directly appreciated. And so, again, particularly just the idea of all this unexpected time and how stressed you can sometimes feel about trying to make sure that everything is taken care of, and how one small disruption can really just start this cascading failure in terms of, things that can really mean the difference between whether or not your current standard is held, or you sort of fall off the edge. We talked about previously how people at the top level can actually really feel the effects of taking some time off in the form of losses of thousands of subscribers, and as a consequence, thousands of dollars. I think that translates into this game very well. And again, like, I'm sure, as with all of the legacies, people have their own way of looking at these things, and in terms of the dancer as influencer interpretation just rings completely hollow. It doesn't do anything for them. But for me, it's definitely one of the ones that surprised me so much. And again, I think it's just a kind of a testament to the writing. Not that I want to sound too beholden to Cultist Simulator and Weather Factory. But in this case, I really do think this is an example where, even for a character that under normal circumstances I wouldn't have thought that it's somebody who I relate to, it's actually turns out to be one of the legacies that I find the most relatable to, for reasons that maybe I didn't appreciate at the start of playing it. Plus, I mean, there are themes in it that are not related to this. Oh, you know what? I was meaning to check. I wanted to see if there's... I don't think it's the heart that determines the healing, but I wanted to see if restlessness... It would be weird if restlessness could cure you, but I wanted to try because I don't think I've ever attempted. Oh, God, I'm feeling really nervous about Timothy now. Okay, it's 10 seconds. We're good. Tonight I sense an opportunity. Tonight I could attract attention if I cease to hold back, if I commit myself more fully. Tonight they'll notice that. Found something noteworthy wrapped in the king. The other example that I can give you too, right? Like, you don't necessarily need to think about occupations which have a heavy physical component as well. Obviously, working at Glover and Glover, there are those times where you need to put in extra effort in order to be able... So if you're dealing with Alden, Alden expects that of you. But even if you're trying to advance at Glover and Glover, there are definitely times where you need to put quite a bit more of your abilities. And again, back to kind of that core theme of Cultist Simulator, how the mundane world is not necessarily hospitable to someone who's trying to pursue something more, or in this case, maybe become something more. In this case, you have to use your reason not towards something that you necessarily value, but instead to pursue sort of the demands of the day-to-day. All right, tonight they'll notice that. So let's do our other job. So to satisfy my Benefactor, I will need to exert my abilities and ensure that I look my best. That always has a cost. My Benefactor would be delighted if I'd offer a private performance for a small and refined audience. They'll invite me to dinner afterwards, and of course, suitable gifts in return for my time. Sorry, and of course, offer suitable gifts in return for my time. Now, I think in this case here, it's better to just let this health regenerate on its own, but we will lose another health, and then we can use the dream slot for that. And we've found Count Jennings. We can learn from each other. So, Count Gottlob Jennings represents a continental confraternity of physicians and duelists. He could use your assistance. So again, that was sort of an unexpected... that was a bit of an unexpected discovery. I was really thinking that we would find another... we'd find someone for the cult, but in this case, we will... speak of esoteric matters. Talking publicly about the invisible arts will attract attention. Perhaps that's what I want. I always kind of like to imagine, I mean, it's hard to see this as something that you do in the work slot, but I always kind of imagine that just being able to put little hints of knowledge of the secret world would be an interesting way that the dancer communicates to those who need to be. So maybe at the private party, you just drop a hint. The same way that... So, the reason why I say this is there's references in the texts to, plays which clearly have instructions inside of them, if you just know where to look. Or, the enigmas in our world, our history. Obviously, if you have been playing Cultist Simulators sort of... I guess it's not technically in our... But anyway, the enigma, if you go to the Weather Factory website, you'll see what I'm talking about if you're not familiar with it. The games can kind of contain little hints, if you know where to look, or at least in the first version. I don't know if the second one has that, but I don't know, for some reason, I think it's probably because of those references to the different plays inside of the game, that I always kind of imagine that the dancer always found a way to sort of work in a little hint to those who know. I'm abrim with vitality. If I devote some time to exercise, I'll benefit. So unfortunately, no course of the heart yet. Hopefully we'll get lucky. Okay. So Season of Visions, I want to be careful about Fascination. That's one of the less likely ones to hit us for the next little while. Now, one thing I might want to attempt would be just an exploration on my own. The drawback here... Actually, you know what? We'll get a health back, so in this case I'll search the city, and this is just a chance for me to try and provoke more heart events. But of course the cost is that I'm gonna be down some health at a time when I may need it for performances. Alright, the sick room grows close and stale. Time to get up. So 24 seconds on this health. There's no point in trying to recover it. I might have found somewhere unusual. Now, I'd love to explore the Street Strange by moonlight, but now is not a good time for that. For the simple reason that if we get a fascination, which is a possibility, that'll sort of sink us. And I question the wisdom, but I am going to search the city with my health again. Again, just trying to provoke more health or more heart events. And in 47 seconds, yeah, we don't have a season of suspicion, so we are safe with our notoriety. Tonight, my benefactor's mood is conversational. So, again, one of the ones I really like here is the idea that the dancer... I suppose maybe it just comes down to the fact that I think there is a lot of perceptions of these kinds of jobs, or these what's needed. It just comes down to only like the one note of health. But of course the reality is that, like, I don't know, like there are definitely some I think maybe acting is not a bad example. There are some actors who I do think maybe put on some airs and try to demonstrate them, like try to make themselves out as maybe being more of an intellectual or more of an important figure than they are. But I also think it's true to say that there are actually maybe some figures who would surprise you based on their... And I think it's actually always... The really interesting tell are the people who... Like the sources of where you hear these things. Because there's definitely some people who want to... Like really want to let you know how clever they are. But then there are some people where you will sort of see in another context some of those indications. Again, it's kind of a question in terms of like it's I don't know, when you see somebody like going out making a big deal about the good works that they're doing, that always sort of raises a certain level of suspicion, fairly or unfairly. And then of course there's the people who just quietly do things, and I suppose it's a little bit like the way that you find those who know in Cultist Simulator, right? Whether you find them in the Mansis, or there are certain signals that people give. There's that connection that you make. You found someone who sort of gets it, or particularly gets you. And there's sometimes just these tells, right? And I don't know. I mean, like, to a certain extent, when somebody gets to the top of something that they do, it's really hard. I know we like to believe that, some particularly people we don't like, that they have no ability and that they just kind of got lucky or nepotism, and that stuff happens. But for the dancer, it's definitely, especially in terms of maintaining these relationships, there's definitely a lot that's being asked, and they need to perform. In this case, it didn't turn out. The stage awaits, hot and clean and bare and bright. If I move the moves and step the steps and do what is required, they'll pay me. So here we've got some health locked up for a minute. I actually think probably I probably made the wrong call on doing the exploration. I mean, I'm saying that as somebody who didn't get the Chorus of the Heart triggered, so of course I'm going to say that, but I still kind of feel like I might have made the wrong call here. Oof. Grabbing the corner is by far the most difficult for me in terms of getting the cards where I want them to be. So originally I wanted to try and get another vitality. I blew it, but I think I actually was a fraction of a second too late on this anyway, so this is probably just going to be something that I have to give up regardless. I could try and trigger a Course in the Heart by reading something like Apollo and Marsyas, Again, that won't help me on the vitality, or I can go for sort of the guaranteed health and study, but that's of course going to lock it away for other purposes. I think for now, let's go for fresh air and exercise. Again, this creates a risk with Nicole, but we do have our dream slot available to us. The Wolf Despair prowls elsewhere. No dread empowers this despair. It's over for now. So we may use the fleeting reminiscence, but... And season of suspicion, so just the right time. I'm refreshed. Okay. So that's good. We definitely needed that. I think we'll just leave that dream slot available because in 8 seconds I'm going to need to recover some health. And tonight I sense an opportunity. Tonight I could attract attention. If I cease to hold back, if I commit myself more fully. So in this case I'll just do a passion. Again, I've got the theory that the more of an aspect you have, the more likely it is to trigger the event. But in this case here, I want to try and keep more of my health, just in case I need, it for an emergency. So now to recover from fatigue, and in this case, I think we'll just go back to Moorlands. It's the safer of the options. If I go to the Ecdysis Club, there is the possibility I can get some vitality, but there's also the possibility I get notoriety, which is not good. All right, so a little bit of a shame here, right? The Course of the Heart. There might be a way that I can try and keep the vitality on the table. So we did get a Course of the Heart. We just got it at the wrong time. But that's life, you know. We'll have to learn to live with disappointment. And we will take care of my other Benefactor. My Benefactor would be delighted if I'd offer a private performance for a small and refined audience. They'll invite me to dinner afterwards and, of course, offer suitable gifts in return for my time. Okay, we can learn from each other. Poppy. Well, I'm not going to need the money, but... So the Mystique's not a problem, other than the fact that it will extend the time that I... it'll extend the time that I have an investigation going against me. I think I'm going to use the Barber's Warning here. That's just because there's a minute. So if I do need to, you know, be engaging in conversation, I know I'll get that passion back. Okay, so we lost the vitality. There's no surprise there. So I need a total of 3 more vitality. I'm already getting 1. Technically, we get more. So we had 33 seconds, so we'll shave off 3 there. More importantly, we get another crack at the Course of the Heart. And Season of Ambition. So that's going to generate restlessness, but it will probably generate restlessness before I can use it. Oop. And we found an introduction to the histories. Too many books. Let's do one more run to Moorlands. So we'll see what the request is this time. If I'm lucky, we'll just get the money. Nope. The Life of the Mind. Tonight my Benefactor's mood is conversational. Let's see if we get a little bit better at the... Let me just double check that it is reason that they want. Yes, it is. The performance is shorter than usual, but the conversations with the other guests and later just my Benefactor go on well into the night. I come away with a handsome gift, so... Good news there, and in 0.8 seconds we'll get our health back. But let's go straight to the gaiety. Actually, let me just double check the times here. 64 versus 68, yeah, so this is expiring a little bit faster. Technically, I want to keep Lord Timothy Monday happier, but especially because usually when we failed, it's been at, on a fraction of a second. I usually try to go for the lower timer for the time being. The stage awaits hot and clean and bare and bright. If I move the moves and step the steps and do what is required, they'll pay me. Of course, we'll be wrapping up here. I'll just take a second to recover from the fatigue and move back in. I need just a little time to recover my energies. So, in terms of what we accomplished, there's not too much in terms of like major changes that we've done in this session. We still have the cult. We haven't necessarily read any other books. We are up to vitality lessons learned, although it is fair to say that we've got 2 minutes before this one will turn back into a regular vitality. So, and of course, we've got 21 seconds before we get a vitality here. So in this case, it's fair to say that we're sort of back on that treadmill of trying to need to generate as much vitality as possible. The way I'm going to get around that is sort of, you've seen a bit of a preview of it from the previous, from this run here, which is to generally try and use my health as often as I can, but it does carry its own risks because, of course, I need to use health for other tasks, such as my private performances and sometimes for the Gaiety Theater. So I want to be a little bit careful about how I handle that, but I'll still do my best with what I've been given. And then in certain circumstances too, we'll be getting a season of ambitions. We'll likely generate a restlessness from that. I may need to change the order in which I do certain things just to be able to get ahead. But of course, all of that will be happening in a future episode. As always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the episode, please feel free to leave a like. And I do enjoy reading the comments, especially the ones that just call me a brilliant Cultist Simulator streamer. No, comments do help the videos get noticed. And then, it does, obviously, the fact that I'm doing the dancer was a product of the fact that there seemed to be quite a bit of interest in this legacy. Now, obviously, I had the option of several legacies, but if I didn't know there was so much interest in the dancer, I probably wouldn't have picked the dancer when the video came up. And of course, if you've not subscribed to the channel yet, I'd love it if you'd do so. The videos come up every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 6:30. But if you hit the little bell button beside the subscription, you can also get a notification when a video is coming up. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you tomorrow in the next episode.